and experts to share their unfiltered truth about the journey to self-actualization and the path to heart-centered leadership. You'll hear raw lessons, learn ancient wisdom, and practical steps to rise to your fullest potential. Now is the time to walk into this new paradigm of leadership. Let's transcend together. Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Transcendent Leadership. I'm your host, Carissa Johnson, and today we have a vulnerable share that my prayer is that it's going to offer wisdom to you in this moment because it has taken me a lifetime to be able to get to a place where I can actually talk about this, as well as be real with the fact that I'm still moving through aspects of this. And I would be shocked to hear anyone who's in the public eye that still doesn't navigate some level of this. And it is the fear around not being liked, the fear around being judged, the fear around being criticized publicly. And when I was praying and asking for a message to share today, this one came through the most strongly. Likely because I've just recently had a big breakthrough around this area. But I think because also many of you are navigating this as well. I just wrapped up a 22-day activation with some clients of mine, and I could feel the energy of their path and their purpose. And I could also feel the energy of the fear that comes along with them, as well as myself and many of my clients, to stepping into their greatness. And even if you're listening to this and you already have a 6 or 7 figure business, you already have things operating in your business, you feel like you're in your purpose, I would wonder and guess that this fear is probably still there in the background, at least a smidge, right? If you go into your YouTube comments and you're reading about what people are saying, or on your social media, or if you're, you're just family members saying things to you about your path and your purpose and what you're doing in the world, especially when it relates to spiritual leadership and really walking in this new era and this new paradigm of what this earth is about and what we're transcending and moving into together. Many people are going to think you're crazy. And I've talked about this on the podcast a lot around living a very spirit-led life and what it means to trust beyond what is rational, what is reasonable, what is standard, what is expected, and kind of going against the status quo and what that means. And so I want to share a little bit about this breakthrough that I had. And yeah, we'll kind of just see where it goes. I have a little bit of notes, but I feel like just sharing this story of what's on my heart will be the most impactful. And so my entire life growing up, I always felt like the oddball. I always felt like the black sheep, not necessarily in my entire family. Like my immediate family is very much on the same wavelength in terms of what we believe is happening in the world, about spiritual gifts, about abundance, about laws of the universe, about ancient wisdom, about all of this stuff. We're very much on the same page. But when it comes to my outer family, like aunts and uncles, nieces and nephews, there's still this sense and this feeling that I feel very different. I feel very outcasted, especially when I stopped drinking. And and for many of you, I don't identify as being sober because if I wanted to drink, I would. I don't have a problem with drinking. I just don't like the way that it makes me feel. I feel like it really lowers my vibration. And I just decided it wasn't something I wanted to continue to partake in. And especially when I stopped drinking, that's when my family was like, okay, she's really off her rocker. And there's still a little pushback around, oh, you're not drinking? Or why don't you loosen up? Have fun a little bit, right? We get a lot of this poking at when people think that we are different or they don't want to look at things within themselves when we're triggering them, when we're showing up in our greatness, our power, our truth. It invites people to take a look at areas in their life. Because when you're going along with the crowd, when there's this bandwagon effect, there's nobody who feels different or out there who's doing something that would cause them to really want to look inward. And so for my entire life, I felt very different from my family, my friends. I remember one specific time I was in college and I was in my freshman year of college and I was just getting into meditating and I was meditating under my desk. I had a lot of anxiety growing up. This is part of the reason why I got into psychology and mental health was because I dealt with so many challenges around my depression, anxiety, substance use that it was challenging for me to really want to be in the world in this way. And so I was meditating and really getting into that. And I was meditating under my desk because I didn't want my roommates to see me, as well as it just, there was an enclosure and like there was darkness, there was no noise. I could actually get under there. And I remember coming out and one of my roommates being like, "What the F were you doing? You look so weird. Why are you doing that?" And I just felt this never ending thing where I was just different. I didn't dress the same as my friends. I didn't understand and still don't understand these these societal expectations around the parties with like the bridal showers and the baby showers. Not that they're not beautiful celebrations and we want to have that, but I think there's this underlying sense and expectation of like, get me the things that I want. You have to show up. It has to look a certain way. And many people, actually a handful of my friends who have gotten married, have actually told me they wish they would have done it simpler and not tried to make this huge grandiose thing because they didn't enjoy it or was so stressful. And it's like, we're really robbing ourselves of the truth of these ceremonial, ritualistic experiences that we get to have because we're caught up in trying to do it for other people. And this is going to be related to what I'm going to share in a moment here. But my entire life, I felt different for not liking these things, for constantly having different outfits. Like sometimes I dressed like a little bit more skater boy, or sometimes I was a cheerleader. I love fashion, but it really never fit together. I always really felt like an outcast. And so there was always this subtle sensation that I wouldn't be liked, I wouldn't be loved, I was never approved of. I was always looked at as like, who the F are you? Even sometimes people will still message me from high school or college and be like, "What is it that you do? I don't understand what you're saying." And in some ways, I'm kind of at the reach the point where I'm like, if you don't understand what I'm saying or what I'm doing or what I'm teaching, maybe it's not time for you yet. So instead of trying to justify, I've gotten to a place of that. But here's the thing, since my entire life I've grown up like this, there was always this lingering energy, which I think is why I really tried to prove who I was, to be liked and be loved around my business, right? Making money, having good marketing, hitting certain milestones in my business. I thought that that would help me like and love myself more, and that in turn would help other people like and love me more. And as of, the last couple of years, I've changed a lot in every area of my life, in the way that I look, in the way that I speak, in the way that I dress, in the things that I believe, in the way that I share my truth and everything. And I love it. I love changing. I love evolving. I love growing. But with that, sometimes it's uncomfortable to share these parts with other people, especially when you're not fully grounded in it yet, which is why integration is a really powerful process. And I think I even have a podcast episode around my 6-step process for integration many months ago. You could probably scroll back and it probably says that exact language, 6-step process for integration. But I've gone through so many changes and cycles and seasons, as many of us have. But I think in my particular path for me, I've noticed I've changed a lot. People have even reflected that back to me. And the part about changing a lot is I never, in addition to this seed that's planted that I'm not going to be liked and loved, which has been a huge wound of mine that I've worked on for many years and I've healed in many ways. There was also this, I'm constantly changing. People are going to judge my changing. People are going to I'm not fully grounded in my truth yet. How do I actually express things that I don't fully feel land yet? Or how do I express my journey and things like this? And then I reached a certain point, maybe a year ago, and it fully landed more in this moment here right now, maybe in the last couple of weeks, where I recognized that many of the ways in which I was showing up were of truth, were of service, were having the goal and the intention and my why in mind of being here to help people raise their consciousness, to heal. Some of the words that come to me are liberation, leadership, and legacy. Those are the three main areas that I think I really help people with. They heal themselves, they really tap into their leadership potential, and also leave a legacy on the planet, not for themselves, but for the entire consciousness of humanity. And so I really feel like I've changed a lot and da da da, like I already said. And there were times over the last few years, and especially since I've really pivoted energetically, emotionally, mentally, spiritually, in my business, and always, there was this sense of not fully landing in myself and not being able to articulate who I am in the world, what I'm here to do in a way that felt fully authentic or the way that felt really grounded. And so how it manifested is I kept feeling like I'm not creative, like I couldn't create, or I'm not feeling expressed, like I couldn't get words out. And what came to me in a meditation the other day was that I was still creating from a place of wanting to be liked and wanting to be loved. And that sensation, that fear, that desire is always going to be there. Inherently, we have needs to belong. We have needs to feel love and be adored, and many individual and unique needs beyond our just human needs, right? And when I realized that many of the blocks that I thought were isolated, I'm not feeling creative, I'm not feeling expressed, were stemming from the core block. This is the core belief. This is the work I a lot of times will do with my client in shamanic work is there's a method that I use called core belief work, and we get to the core of what the imprint is that's manifesting disease, illness, sabotage, frustration, money issues, whatever it is. And the core belief for me is I, so how it shows up in the subconscious is I am loved. No. And so I kind of got that. I was like, wow, I don't feel the fullest amount of love that I could feel for myself. And even though I've been on a journey of self love, of coming into my wholeness and appreciation, there was still this subtle energy around feeling like my worth, my value, my impact is based on other people's validation of me through vanity metrics. And this is the truth. And this is what I think a lot of people face, but don't talk about it. Especially my clients, when they're in the public eye and they have thousands, hundreds of thousands of followers, they don't want to talk about the fact that they still feel this subtle fear. But it was manifesting through vanity metrics. Like, how many likes do I have? How many followers do I have? How big is my email list? How much money is in the bank? Always quantifying my value based on something outside of me. I'm going to say that again, quantifying value of who you are based on things that are outside of you. So my value, I worked through this a lot over the last couple of years, but my value was still had that subtle energy around it. And so it was manifesting in all these ways. And when I got this download, it was like a huge energy that wanted to be liberated around really recognize the goal of when you are posting, what's the reason you're posting? When you're writing, why are you writing? When you're creating, what are you creating for? When you're coaching, when you're mentoring, when you're healing, when you're speaking, what is the outcome? And if the outcome is to get more likes and get more followers and get more people to buy your services, that's not coming from the heart. That's not coming from truth. That's not coming from love. You can expect to receive more influence, more power, more wealth, and it not be the goal. Whenever you're moving from that place, it's coming from the energy that it is not enough, because if you want more, it's creating I don't have enough. So how can you be in a place of I desire to have these things, but I also know exactly where I'm at? And so I shifted from this energy of creating and measuring my success or effectiveness of like, oh, okay, did that post land really well? Did it do really well? Okay, that must mean people loved it. And if people loved it, I should do it more. Like modulating my own behavior for the likes of others. And so when I got clear on this, I was like, I'm going to switch into what if the only goal is just to create? The only goal is to create. The only goal is to share. The only goal is to serve. And if I serve one person, if I serve no one, but I move the energy out of me, I allowed the Holy Spirit, God, my higher self, universal consciousness to utilize this beautiful open vessel that I have for expression, for art, for creation, for really helping other people transform naturally, but that's not how I'm measuring my effectiveness. We have a really interesting time period that we're in right now around leadership, around success, around happiness. And it can really get easy to get caught up in noticing and believing that the people who have the most followers must feel some sense of significance or pride. The people who have the most money must feel really happy and wealthy and well, like have well being. And the truth is that it's often the contrast. And when I think about some of the most impactful leaders throughout history, one of the first ones I go to is Jesus Christ or Martin Luther King. Some of these individuals who really stood for things that were revolutionary, but they didn't do it to say, like, you have to follow me. You have to believe the same things that I do. I think about Jesus's leadership, where he invited people to walk with him, but he just knew what he was here to do and he shared that message and he just created. He created energy, he created connection, he created love, he created truth, he created all of this transformation naturally. His goal wasn't to, you know, help a million people. He wanted to just share a message. He wanted to share truth. He was coming down to symbolize something. And so when I think about the impact that I desire to make, which still gets to exist, I don't want to get rid of, okay, we don't want to desire any of these things. That's bypassing our human nature, right? This part of me that wants to be of service, that wants wealth, that wants this gets to exist here simultaneously. But the other side of the coin is not letting it be the driving force, not measuring my success, my happiness, my wealth based on these outside things. Because for me, if I measure my success based on how many people are liking my content, I would be failing because reality has shown for me that there's sometimes when I say things or I speak to things that people are not meant to like. But in some ways, it may trigger or activate something within them, or at the very least, get them curious about themselves, about their evolution, about connection, about love, about forgiveness, about whatever it is that I'm speaking about. So in some ways, it's okay and even good that sometimes people don't like me because that is showing me and them, we're mirroring to each other ways in which areas in which we need to grow or we get to grow or we want to grow. We are a reflection to each other. There has been many people that initially upon their work of coming along with them, I was like, I don't know that I really like this. And it's because it's activating, it's triggering a part within me, a controlling part that's like it has to be this way, or a tender part that's like, well, if it's this other way, then that means I have to face this other thing. So some of my greatest teachers have come into my life and I felt the resonance of truth, but I didn't always feel agreeable right away because there was still parts of me that needed to heal. And so it's interesting as I've come into greater awareness around the goal is not to be liked, the goal is not to be loved. The goal is to create and to share love, is to embody love, is to embody compassion. Even the people who don't like me or who don't agree with my message or who don't even understand it, those are sometimes the people who need love, compassion the most. So I don't want to be in a place anymore. And I want to invite you to think about where you're at with your own journey of recognizing that, accepting the territory that you're walking in, that you might encounter people who straight up ridicule what you're doing and criticize what you're doing. And how can you stand in conviction and truth regardless? Because what kind of mission is it anyway if you don't face a little bit of backlash, right? This is revolutionary, the things that we're talking about and we're going to talk about with leadership and healing and human potential. And the reason why collective consciousness is a certain way and there's a paradigm around something is because people have believed it. So when there's a mass consciousness around this is how leadership is, this is how healing is, this is how success looks, this is what happens with wealth, when everybody believes it and then somebody comes in and says, well, this is different, It's going against a collective consciousness around it. So it might take a little bit of time for people to come around and to believe it. I remember I've been talking about the laws of the universe, meditation, plant medicine for years. And now people are like, oh, I'm now awakening to what you were saying. But my goal isn't to awaken them. My goal is not to awaken people. It's to help them, guide them through the awakening process because everybody has their own timeline. This is a really important message for somebody right now. Everyone, including your friends, your family, your clients, the collective, everybody has their timeline for awakening. So this message might not land for you right now or somebody right now, but maybe in a year from now it will. But that's not going to stop me from sharing it. That's not going to stop me from expressing it. I've come into the energy of really loving me regardless of what's happening and creating for the act and the art of creating and remembering that the world doesn't need to be healed. Carissa is not going to be this savior on the planet who awakens the entire world. But if I create from love, if I'm the artist of my life, if I focus on myself and my environment being the masterpiece, and I express my truth and I express love, and that naturally helps, inspires other people, that's wonderful. But sometimes as leaders, we can get into the savior complex around we have to save people. We need to wake the world up. And that's implying that the world is broken. And inherently, with the laws of the universe, everything is divine, everything is perfect. It may not look like that, and that's hard. But as we transcend beyond this duality, which is going to be one of the next podcasts I'm going to be sharing with you, is how do we move into transcendence? And it's going beyond duality. It's really looking at this is not good or bad, black or white. I'm not liked or hated. It just is. This person's having a response to me and my work. This thing doesn't need to mean this. We are creating meaning simultaneously based on the truth of just what is. Everything is neutral. Everything is just an experience. And so, even if I can face the truth and the reality that people will not like and love me, I don't need to believe that that means anything about my value or my worth or my impact at all. It could be neutral. And so when you remove the goal of that and you get really honest with yourself that you might still be moving from that place, you become liberated. Since then, I've been creating content, expressing, writing myself, speaking my truth in my relationships, having these conversations, and being able to sit with the discomfort of they're not agreeable. They don't like me. This is not landing with them. I can sit with the discomfort of that. But that I've had to work to get to that place to build that capacity to be with other people not liking me. There was a time in my life where I was such a people pleaser where if you didn't like me, tell me everything that you need to do. I had this fawn response. Whatever you need from me, I will do in order for you to like me, love me, if that means sacrificing myself. This is why trauma healing, this is why recognizing the history of your roots and your origins and your lineage matters because this stuff is passed down. Many of you might identify with being a witch and being burned at the stake and feeling that visceral response when you go to share something and you're like, I'm going to die. It is in your DNA. This is not woo woo. This is science. The stuff is passed down. They've done studies with rats where the rats have been shocked when they eat a certain food. And then those children, the children of those rats and their children's children still had that same shock response in their body when given that same food. This is studied. These things are happening. So the message is that you get to accept the truth and the reality of this territory and the remembrance and the awakening that as you walk your path, as you transcend into new levels of yourself and you awaken within you, you will awaken other people and you awaken parts of them and you awaken aspects of them that they don't want to look at and they might have a response to that. And if you remove the goal of being liked, of being loved, of increasing your following, of increasing all of these things to prove something to yourself, you will be liberated. You will be free. That is the most glorious freedom. And from that freedom becomes magnetism. And as you have this magnetism, you attract more naturally. Attracting is the byproduct of it. Being in a relaxed, regulated state of being because you love yourself, you know where you want to go, you know what you want to feel. That is power. That is unshakable power. That is a power, that is a flame, that is a fire that never goes out. So create, share what's on your heart. Let your heart be your guiding and leading force. Listen to that nudge that says, somebody might benefit from this. This is what your heart really wants to say right now. And share it, because there could be one person on the other side of that has a breakthrough, that has it. And even if no one is listening, you are. That's what matters, is you matter to you. Be the artist, be the creator, and come from a loving and accepting place of yourself. And you will be able to move through accepting that there will be ridicule and there will be criticism, and that you are still worthy and loved anyway. Hope this message lands in all the deepest places of your heart as it has mine. And I will chat with you next week. Bye bye.